coffee?
Are they shared? So it can be either or, Ed. Ed asked, are these shared in a shared folder or on your network? Or do you have to install them and send them to others? So you can have them in an area where you direct colleagues to go to and grab them, or you can share them. You can even attach them to a PDF. So if you wanted to send a PDF to somebody and have them work off your profiles that has your custom tool sets, your custom columns, you can actually attach the profile to a PDF. Again, they can, generally they live in a shared file. These ones do, at least the folders out of the box ones. But if you're importing it, you're going to direct it to where it's going to be imported from. So i.e. that shared folder. Or you can send it and say, hey, here's this one. It's static, right? I mean, it's dynamic. No, it's static. It's not dynamic. I always get those backwards. So it's not going to be updated. I'm just sending you this one. I'll send you a new one when I decide to update it or something like that. It really comes down to what you decide for your profiles, and the workflow that works best for your company.
Right. So here you can, select something from a server location if you needed to. You can go navigate to that without talking about the administration part where, well, I suppose we will talk about that eventually, but without forcing everybody to that profile, you can just navigate to a server location. It doesn't have to be on your C drive. So now that I've created this morning coffee review profile, you can see that it's active right here. And if I want to change the order of that, I can certainly grab it and, oh, I can't move it up, can I? Oh, that's tricky. That was not like the tool set. I was mistaken. So I've got my profile, my morning coffee review. Now I can start making changes to this. If I wanted to have different panels, like I don't have links up here, maybe I want links on this one. I can have that panel here. I can turn these on and off. I can move where they are. I want different toolbars. Say I want my line style stuff set in here. You can change the interface as far as the toolbars and the panel locations. You can change the columns, and you can also change the tool sets. So in my morning coffee review, I might not want my architect review, or I might not want my contractor review. And I can go ahead and remove these accordingly by managing my tool set. And
I do want to add something before you get into the tool sets part as well. The panels can be dragged out to second screens. So if it is dragged out to a second screen, it will be on that second screen when you open the profile. So if you decide to dock it somewhere else and you save the profile where that is, Review will open it on that second screen. So if you are one of those folks that needs more real estate where you want the PDF to be here, your tool sets to be on your second screen or your third screen, if you have 3 screens, you can have these docked on different screens. And when you open the profile, it will dock this where it was last docked. So just be aware of that.
Does it hold the size as well?
I've never tried the size. I just know it opens up docked.
Interesting. I never really used my panels undocked like this. Does anybody else?
I could see if you were using it every review for a large review set and you had a bunch of tools, right? Instead of having less real estate on your PDF, if that was something I was doing every day, that would definitely be on my second screen. Just like in Revit, a lot of people have like the properties palette on second screens.
Yep. Oh, I do that with Civil 3D.
Yeah, it really helps cut down going back and forth across multiple screens. Yeah.
It's really not super easy to manipulate though.
It's very, the drags aren't, no. Yeah.
Very touchy.
It's easy to right click and reattach it too. You can always right click and attach, so.
Ta-da. And you can
That's
drag
just
it up
something
and down.
I like to add. Yeah. And dragging the toolbars, right? The toolbars can be dragged around. They're just the 3 little bars and you just move them. Those stay in the user interface though. They will not leave the UI, okay? So these cannot be dragged to second screens. They can be dragged anywhere in the UI, top, bottom, left, right. They just can't leave the application, I guess you would say.
Right. I don't need this one. All right. See, I'm just starting to decorate. I totally lost my train of thought. That's what happens.
Ed asked if the person saving the tool chest has two monitors and puts it on on monitor 2, then shares it with a single monitor person, does he see it at all? So Ed, I don't like to guess, but it would probably be undocked on the front screen. And it's not where they save the tool chest in terms of like they just make a custom tool set and hit save. It's where it's saved in the profile, right? So wherever it's moved, and then if Jason goes up to review and then hits save profile, that is where it's saving it. In terms of like panel location, that's where it's going to save where it last opened that panel, not the tool set in the tool chest. It's the tool chest panel is where it's saving it.
Yep, good question. So now that I've made those changes, do I always have to go over here and hit save profile? Is it anything saved if I just close review?
Yeah, it's defaulted save, but if you want to save it, right, in terms of the location of where it is, yeah, you want to hit save.
Yeah. So I'll have you take over and talk about the columns part of profile management.
Okay. Oh, you want me just to take you over? Okay. There you're gonna hit end share. By default, everyone starts review with the review. Review advanced is what I usually work in. I do like to add also, you can create a custom toolbar menu. So just by right clicking, go to customize. This is a highly underutilized area as well. We use some folks usually just use what's out of the box. You're allowed to come in here and change the toolbars. So these are your toolbar options, what are available already. You can add a new one yourself that you want to select from. And these are your commands that you get to add to those toolbars. So when you click on one, it shows you what commands are in those toolbars. Okay, so from that toolbar, the document toolbar, these are all of my items that I have in there. I can add new ones. Now, what categories do I want to add from is up to you. There's all different categories, or you could say all. You can go through and see all of these commands that you want to add to here. There's also a lovely little pin button that shows up next to some of these. I don't have anything open. We did it with our tool set the other day. That's what happened here. You can always pin them to a toolbar. So that is also with your commands and things you have up here. When you go to, you'll see a pin option, and that'll pin it to a toolbar that you have. Okay, and we were going to go to custom columns, right?
Or just columns in general and how columns react to different profiles. Because the question came up last week, does the column stick with the PDF or is it part of review's profile?
So it's both. Right? The native columns work with the profiles, right? But also the PDF is being saved, the metadata to whatever profiles you have active as well. So if you send a PDF, those profiles are going to open up, those columns are going to open up with the PDF. So they are saved to the PDF by default. And then if you want to create a custom column, so these columns down here in the markups list, that's itemizing your data. For those new folks that are in here, we'll shed a little light. Bluebeam Revu is powerful in the fact that you also get metadata as well with any of your markups. I'm seeing a lot of firms going away from using the good old Cloud Plus And yes, there's a Cloud Plus feature for all those folks that are following along and using a box arrow to cloud. There is a Cloud Plus feature in review, so please use it. Alt-Z, hotkey. You can have this auto size automatically. That was a great tip from Kyle Davis from our support team. But the metadata is being used heavily here. So no longer are they making markups with comments that are taking up the space. It's just the revision cloud and it's itemized down here in the markups list. So the markups list is itemizing all of our data that's being published markup wise on our PDF. So from here now, we can organize the way these columns work. So from here, I can say, hey, you know what? I don't want the subject first. You can left click hold, and you can move these columns around here from our markups lists and have a different order as you're organizing your data down here. Now, you can also create custom columns. Now, custom columns are from the markups list, columns, and then manage columns down here. Now, these are all of the columns from out of the box. They do change. So if I go to a different profile, like quantity takeoff, these are going to change, right? My spaces is here, my subjects is over here. So see, I have more already available from my quantity takeoff, and how they're organized is set by the profile, meaning I went in, moved these around, or well, I didn't, this one was from Bluebeam, they did, and then had it default installed with the software, right? So from here, I go back to review advanced, it's still saved where it was natively, right? Because it's just saved in your user interface area, cached locally. Now, if I wanted to save it hard save, I'd have to go over here and hit save profile, right? Then I could share that with another colleague if I wanted to, wherever that file lived. Now that is a .bpx files, the file extension, if you were all wondering, for profile. Also for custom columns down here, if I go to manage columns, these custom columns by default save to the PDF. So if you're coming over here, making task lists or a responsibility column or a quantity column for cost, or whatever you're using your custom columns for, you then can save it to the profile down here as well. This is a huge thing that's missed. People just create it and they're like, they're gone. Well, did you save it? It's because it wasn't saved to the profile. So always recommend saving it to the profile if you're going to reuse it. This is great too, because what I'll see is a lot of firms have multiple items they're trying to do, right? If they're trying to organize all of this column data and do a bunch of different things with it, then they're going to get confused because they're going to see 10 columns and some of that information doesn't even pertain to what they're trying to do here. So they have to sort the data. Well, just create multiple columns for different tasks, right? Like quantity takeoff, punch walkthrough. Those are different profiles that have different things in them, like your tool sets, like your columns. So again, you can share those. We can even attach them to PDFs. So if we're sending them to another colleague who doesn't have the profile and they're just starting out and doing a quantity takeoff, hey, here's my quantity takeoff profile, already has your tool sets, already has your custom columns. All you're doing is starting to mark up the PDF, and all they have to do to load that profile in is double click on it and it'll populate it into the review interface. There's some questions or something.
Yep. So the question from Jason here is, if you open a PDF that has custom columns in it, can you go to manage columns and then save that column to your profile?
It's a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. So that's something.
That way you can extract that custom column from a specific PDF and add it to your profile for future reuse. I like that question. Do you have an option that you can open that up and test it?
Not in here. And I would say we try it in a session, but sessions doesn't let you create custom columns. So that's why you would create secondary. Let's add an additional thing. If you're creating a custom column, make sure that it's done on the PDF or the profile prior to loading that PDF into the session. Otherwise, you can't do it in the session. But yes, do you want to create a custom column right now in a PDF?
Yeah, I've got one open right now. So
And then
let's try
just
this.
drop it in
I'll open up my
project.
markups list. Well, I'm just going to check on mine. So if I go to custom columns, manage columns, custom columns, if I select it, I can save to profile. Okay. It says click OK to apply the custom columns as the template for the current file and all new PDF documents. So I'll hit OK. OK. I'm going to change my profile. I know I'm not sharing my screen. That's besides the point. I'll close this file.
There it is.
Different one. No.
I think I have one
columns
I can dump in here.
Morning coffee review. It does appear. So yes, Jason, that is possible. You can take a file, a PDF file that already has a custom column in it, and you can save that to your profile after that step. I love questions like that where we're not sure. We get to go test them and actually get something we can answer positively. That works great. So I appreciate that. So the custom column that I did on my test, even though I wasn't sharing my screen, was my total cost. So I have a formula that takes my area and multiplies it by my material. There's all sorts of other simple formulas that you can create in Revu with this custom column that would be perfect to reuse because you don't want to have to figure them out all the time. But not everyone will have the same fields in it, so you want to be careful.
Yep, and also it's great for doing quantity takeoffs for, let's just say, plumbing design, right? So if we're trying to do any runs or even electrical, right, trying to get the total lengths of something, if you have the type of custom tool set created that's a specific type of wire gauge that you're utilizing, and you're using the poly length, and you also know the rise and drop of it, so you're adding that in, you'll have the ability to create an expression here that is the length times, right, a cost column that you have. So if you applied a cost of what the total length is, and this is your total formula, so you would times it by cost and length, and that'll give you an actual number in Revu. So you don't have to export it out to Excel, but by all means, if you love Excel, that's great. I highly recommend getting Bluebeam Revu Extreme, because then you can have those custom columns already populate data in them. And we're definitely going to be talking about that in a next morning coffee review.
Yep, still working on the data set for that one. So that'll be coming up in a couple of weeks, so stay tuned.
Yes. Any questions around profiles so far?
All right, here's a question from David. I use custom columns or a comment, I should say. I use custom columns with my custom tools to tie my takeoff to my pay items in our estimating system. So using this with markup exports allows me to import the data into my estimating software, which is a huge time saver. That's a great way to do it. Thanks for sharing how you use Revu, David.
Yes, I agree. Custom columns are huge. Markups list is huge just altogether. The summary reports that you're able to print out, we talked about templates last week, and creating those custom templates for exports, which is great. So you're itemizing your data, you're creating your markups, right? You're going through, and then you already have an export template. You have your profile already set up. You're just setting yourselves up for success as well as your firms. So, all righty. So we talked about custom columns so far. Maybe we'll run through one. Should we run through one? So what I would do, let's just say we're trying to get some kind of length. I'm going to actually open up some kind. I already have one, so hold on. Let me open from disk here. Some of our data sets here. So we already have some water lines going through here. These were custom markups created. So as you can see, they have different line weights or line styles, sorry. Line styles, yeah. That help differentiate. You can also add for those line styles. Did you do a webinar on how to do those or a blog?
I did something. I think it was. I know I've covered it a few times. I did do a blog about it, and I did do a webinar with, I believe, that had talking about custom line work. So if you want to go check out the ATG YouTube channel, you'll find it there.
And support stuff for the blog, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So highly recommend checking out the blog in terms of creating these custom line styles for them. But going through here, we have all of the information tied to it. So maybe we want to give it a cost value. Now, when you create a custom column, they do get defaulted to all of the markups under a comment area. But if these markups are saved in a custom tool set, I could click on it, right? We could then use those later on, which I don't think I have these ones loaded in either. But setting myself up right there. But what I can do is I can right click and always add this to a tool set. Let me just add it to my tools. So if I go up to my tools here, I now have this to be able to reuse it and switch it from drawing mode to properties mode. So I can reuse the same markup, right, over and over again. And it's going to itemize with that same specific cold water data for the subject. Now, when I create a custom column like a cost value, so if I go to columns, manage columns, and I go and add one and we do cost, and I hit, it's going to be a numerical value. Format's going to be currency to decimal places because we're here. I would want to save the profile here. I'm not going to though for this instance, or should we, Jason? What do you think?
I made a custom morning coffee review profile. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Okay, let me go up here, manage profiles here. Let me
Or I could share my profile that I made for, or you're going to work on this one, then you're going to export that, then I can import that profile that we're on the same page. There we go.
So
another use for profiles.
Coffee review. I'll put MJE so that we know it's mine because you already have one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to hit OK. Great. It's taking the instance that it's in. This is my active profile I can see from up here. These are all of my profiles that are in my specific application. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm back down to here. Let's go back to my cost column and go here. And it didn't save it. Costs. Let me go to here. Numerical 2. Great. And I'm going to save to profile. Yes, I want to save it to my template. Then I'm going to add an additional one. The next one's going to be total. Yeah, that's fine. Total. So from here, I'm going to do a formula, and we said it's going to be length. So as I'm typing in L, it's starting to populate my information. So it's going to be length, space. What do you call that? The star?
The asterisk.
Asterisk, okay.
The
star. Times length times cost. That's going to be my expression here, okay? So it's length times cost. What is it going to populate from this value, currency, to decimal places, the dollar amount, include the total, yes, hit OK. And again, I want to save this one to my profile, right? So that good old Jason Artley can have it as well. I'm gonna hit OK. So now I have both here. Now, what you would do usually, and this is just dependent on how dynamic you want it to be, you can go in here and then type the cost, or each time you use that tool specific to the tool set, right, the cost could already be pre-assigned. So if I select this one, I go to settings. I'm not marking up yet. I'm gonna scroll down. Oh, great, I messed up the line style here. I hit escape, is it gonna save that? Great, it's saved as gas, so it changed a little bit, but okay. As I go down here, I have my custom area now.
So that change from your custom column affected the properties of everything on here.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I want this one to default at a price, I'd select it, right, from my tool set, go in here and type in the default price, not the total, right? Then I can go in and hit escape, and this will default at that $2 amount, okay? So now every time I select that markup, it'll default to that $2 amount. Now, if I select a different markup, like this revision cloud, there's no cost to it. So it's not defaulting every single markup to $2. Sorry, tool set, yeah, which is the markup to $2. It's just the one that I selected. And now each time I get ready to place it, I don't have to go in and type $2. But again, it's up to you, right? To each their own. You can come in here and type $2. Completely fine. It's completely up to you. I'm going to only see my cold water because that's the only thing I have data-wise for assigned value numerically. These didn't get assigned yet because they were already placed. So I could go back and place them. But as I get ready to place this, yes, it will say gas for all those people in here. Don't yell at me. It's going to automatically give it the $2 and give me the total value of it over here, right? So let me bring this over here so we can see it. Perfect. So there's my cost. It's multiplying by the total length here. So 2 times the length, giving me my value. Yes, it'll give you a total run cost for that specific subject. That's why subjects is a huge part of review. So if you had cold water, you needed how much cold water line do we need, or specific sizing, you need to think about your subject and also your, what else is there in there? Hold on, I confused myself. Subject and label, right?
Yep.
So you got to remember your subject and label play a huge part into how your data is going to be itemized. But going back to it, so if I add another one from the same one that already has a value to it, go out here. I'm holding shift to get a straight line, hit enter because I'm done. Again, there's the value of that specific one, how much that run costed, but my overall cost is here.
And now you save that to your profile. Those options are going to be available to you every single time that you're inside of this profile, regardless of what PDF you're on.
Yep.
Now, while you're in the markups list, I want to answer ask a question from Ed, and this is a very important / loaded question. How much of the markup part passes through the PDF to users that are opening this in Adobe Reader or Pro? Because they're interested in passing on the markups to the client, but not the math formula and all the other stuff that's going on in the background. So the answer is none of it. That's what makes Bluebeam Revu so powerful. If you want them to see the markups list, you need to export that separately, right? Not by doing a PDF summary, a markup summary. Then they would be able to see the numbers, but not the formulas, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So I do know they see if they have DC Pro, from what Kyle Davis has talked to me about, and that's our shout out to our support. If they have DC Pro, they do have some kind of, I've never used DC Pro at Acrobat, so they do have some kind of list like this where they do see some data, but I don't know all of the data. No, they will not see your formula of something times something gives you this value. No.
And then another comment from David, wouldn't you need to flatten the markups? So we're talking about flattening would allow them to be visible in the PDF file, but then the markups list information is going to disappear entirely. But if you wanted to show this information at the bottom that I'm using my cursor to show, even though I'm not sharing my screen, so this is
this
very helpful. There we go. Thanks you for telepathically moving my mouse for me. That's the markup list data they want to see. So from there, I would recommend doing a markup PDF summary. So if you go to that button, export There you go. Then they can see that data that's in that markups list in any, maybe flatten it after that. Then they'd be able to see everything, yeah? Is this visible in Adobe? I would imagine it would be.
I can't speak to, this is where I always default to asking Kyle Davis these questions because he has Adobe to test these things. I do know they have some type of list that shows you things from other PDFs like this. And that's why sometimes you do have to flatten the markups like that sketch. Someone had a sketch to scale issue here before where the information of the scale was showing up, and when you flattened it, that went away. But I don't know about flattening the markups here, and does the data no longer go with it? That's a good question. But for the expression question, they will not see the expressions of your formulas. No, they'll just see the value of whatever it is.
There we go. So while we're looking at your screen, you have a column there for cost, and it's added up to $4. So that is where that column, there was a checkbox for include in totals. So that one would be unchecked for your cost column as you're making that custom column.
Yes, sorry, did I miss that?
No, your other one, your cost one.
Oh.
Modify that. Then, yep, uncheck that. Now it's not adding up your $2 every time. Yeah, because we don't need to see that. That would be distracting. But yeah, very cool stuff that we can do with that. And that profile you said is a BPX file.
.bpx, correct.
.bpx. So you can just take it, export it, share it, give it to whomever. Now, all of those custom columns and formulas are coming with that in the profile as well, right? So if you've got somebody who's a great formula creator or column creator, go bug them, steal their stuff, import it.
So this is great for somebody that's going to be managing how review works at a firm, right? If you're implementing items and someone doesn't have the ability or knowledge to take the time to do it as well, they're just one of those folks that are getting in, doing the job, don't really necessarily need to know how the background works of review. You could set it all up for them and just show them how to grab the specific tool sets they need to do their markup or quantity takeoff job, a more punch list walkthrough, and their data is going to start itemizing, and all they have to do is go over here and either hit the summary report or whatever setup you have. We talked about the templates already, and they can just go in and say, great, I'm going to load my config from this file here, and they're going to export out. And all they're doing is grabbing the specific markups laid out for them that they have using the tool sets that they have already loaded into the profile.
Very
Setting
cool.
people up for success.
Absolutely. And just a reminder, even though we're kind of talking about profiles today, if there's any other questions you have related to Bluebeam Revu, feel free to type them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and we'll be happy to answer those for you as we continue to work through our session today. We've got about 20 minutes left here.
Correct. Is this already a scale too? Oh, there is. Okay.
So here's the question. Let's say that I'm a CAD manager or I'm an administrator at a firm, and I want to create a custom profile for all of my users. Can it be installed when I deploy Revu?
Yes, we talked about deployment and installing the profiles from it with Kyle. So if you ever miss a Bluebeam morning coffee review, we do put the videos on YouTube. Hopefully you can make it and ask and hang out with us live here, because it's always fun talking with all of you. But again, you can watch the YouTube video because they're also on there, and we talk about deployment and using the deployment package that Bluebeam provides for installing Revu, and how you can point to profiles to be preloaded in.
Yep. So if that's something that you're interested in, go back a couple weeks and you'll see our video that talks about that specifically. So that's just tying in our power of profiles with easier ways to manage this for your firm. Mm-hmm. So thanks for that. Now we've got another question from David. If someone does a takeoff for you and then you open the file with your profile that has extra columns, does it automatically add the data in the additional columns? So I would say that, well, it depends on what you're taking off. If they've already had custom columns that are in there, because those are going to save with the profile or the PDF file anyway.
I get what he's saying. So he's saying if I already have a cost, is that cost already going to show up? Is it going to translate to what you have? So let's just do that real quick then. I'm going to save as. I want you to create a custom cost column, Jason.
Okay.
Well, so it wouldn't even interfere either way, because if it was a cost, it's going to only stay with the markup data that was assigned to that specific markup, right? So, but let's try it. So just create a custom column that says cost. I am going to save as this. I'm going to save it to, actually, I'm going to save it to a studio project, morning coffee review, and send a quick share link to Jason Artley, which is another powerful feature of review, the studio part. So studio projects. And I'm just going to save it here. Oh, I hit save the disk. Great. Let me share this with you. Share link.
So the comment from David is, I think the data would need to be in the tool that they use, even if they don't see it. A better way to ask is, will columns that that person doesn't see still calculate? Ooh, I'm guessing no.
It's up to you.
Okay.
So before you open it, let's have you share your screen.
All right, so I will share my screen. Ta-da! There we go. So I just opened up the completely wrong file. Let's go to this guy. All right.
Do the one that I sent.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Okay.
I was sticking with the other one on my screen. So in the chat message, Michael sent me a link. So if you haven't seen this feature before, I'll click on it. There we go. It opens up the internet browser. Say, hey, a Bluebeam Studio file has been shared with you. I can download that. That shows up in my downloads. I won't open it in Chrome. That's gross. Now I can open that from my downloads. There we go. So here is the same file that he was just working on. If I go to markups.
Did you already have that cost value showed up?
No, I did not. I did not save it to my profile. I don't think.
I think the question was.
I did. So I created the same exact column, but.
So it just put the data where the column already was existing in your profile, right?
So I had a custom column saved to my profile. It was also called cost. It was also a number. However, mine was formatted as a currency. Yours is formatted as a normal. So it overwrote mine. If I close this, so again, let's take a look at that. Columns, manage columns, custom columns. The cost here is a normal. If I close this and go back to my other one, I also have a cost here. If I go to my columns, manage columns, custom columns, cost, modify, there's my currency. So this is saved to my profile. I have a cost one that's added to my profile. So regardless of what PDF file I'm in, I'm going to always see that. However, since Michael's was going through and
that's the wrong PDF.
It's not here though. Total cost is there. maybe I didn't save it to my profile. This is weird.
So let's create a cost column then right now.
All
Before you open the, yeah.
I was just gonna grab the right file.
But before you open it, let's create a cost column. What? Because we want to see what happens to the data that's already there, right?
I have one. I have this one.
Okay.
Here.
Okay.
So column, manage columns.
So that's a number right now too, and it's currency. Great.
Number, currency. Let's make it 4 decimal places. Something silly to make it stand out. Or 0. That's even more. That's better. I almost said more better, but I've had more coffee than that. All right. So cost, number, currency, 0. So the values that I have saved in my profile for cost are different than the cost column that's coming over from the PDF file that Michael created, right? Even though they have the same exact name, and maybe doing one that's not capitalized would be a little different too. That's another test for another day. But I'll go overhead and I'm going to close this one. Save that. And I'm going to open up just that download one from Michael. There we go. So here's that plumbing file. And if I go to my markups list, there is a cost. And if I go down, there should be some in here with values. Now you'll notice, for one, immediately what jumps out is the precision. I chose 0. Yours says 2.
So hold on, hold the door. Open your other PDF you just had.
Oh.
Just go to recent.
Cost.
Look at that. So it's not changing his profile. It's just the PDF columns specific.
Yep. So it's overriding my profile with what the PDF is wanting to do. So that's an interesting little hierarchy there.
So it's dependent, your profile gets changed dependent on whatever PDF is sent to you for the columns in the markups list. So you can control someone else's columns in their markups list, even though their profile is saved in a different manner, if you change the columns in the PDF.
Correct. So if I go to my columns now,
I didn't know that.
Manage columns, custom columns, there's that cost. If I modify it, yep, it totally overrode what I had set in my profile. But that's just because this PDF was probably, I don't know if it has something to do with the fact that this file wasn't created by me. And maybe that's holding some of that data integrity of that PDF.
It doesn't change the profile though, because we can go to that other PDF and it still shows up the data that how we wanted it. It's just how the data is being distributed in this specific PDF. Yeah.
So David says that it makes sense that a PDF would bring its own columns with it. So
yeah, because
even though they're spelled the same.
Yeah, and that happens in a session. So I mean, that's why you would do it in a session before.
Right. That was a good test. So thanks for following along with us on that little journey there. Any other questions from anybody out there? It doesn't have to relate to columns or profiles, just anything in review. Are you having trouble with stuff that you need to work on today that you'd like a little help with? Feel free to ask away. Otherwise, we'll keep on rolling here. So let's go down to, while I'm in here, I'm going to go to Manage Profiles. And we did this before. Oh, and thanks for DJ CJ checking in on our YouTube live audience. Hello, everybody over there. If you've got questions as well, feel free to ask on that side, and DJ CJ will pass them over to us here on Zoom so we can see them. All right. So I've got my morning coffee review. This is the one I made. And as I mentioned before, I can export that, and that's going to be that BPX file. So really easy to share. But what I wanted to show was something that Michael had discussed earlier. I can save this and I can hit OK. And then if I wanted to, we just talked about having that PDF file maintain its own columns. But if I wanted to have more options, I can go over here, go to Tools, and I can attach a file attachment. Find that morning coffee review BPX file and drop it right here. And then with that PDF file that I'm sending to somebody else, please double click to install my profile needed for this project.
And I always like to change it from that clip.
From the paper clip?
Yeah,
what do you like to use?
I like to use what it is. So the it's like it's the icon, but attachment maybe. So not the paper clip. So it's right there where you were, back to the right. It's what it is, the file type, because then it shows it. So let's see the attachment one.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. No, go down. Okay, go up.
File
icon, that one.
There we go.
Is then, right, hopefully we know what it is. Some of us probably don't. So
you don't want an exe or something that might be malicious.
Yeah.
That's a good trick too. I never usually do that. Now, side note, if you were to open this PDF file on an iPad and click on it, it will load that profile on your iPad. And all the tool sets that go with it. So that's an easier way to manage your iPad information too. But now if I sent this to anybody or put this up on my studio, because I'm working with other folks, this will make it easier to all be on the same page, especially if you're doing customized things, or if you're trying to control the cost. Like, well, from my supplier, a gas line or a water line, that whatever Michael's drawn in here, is $2 a foot, perhaps. That's what it's going to be for the rest of the project. Very cool stuff here. This would also be a great way to standardize. If you're the main estimator and you're controlling those values for everybody, if something is $2 a foot or $3 a foot, the easy way to push that back out.
Agreed. And for those of us in the iPad world, if we had an issue where we can't log in the studio, that was a thing. For me, I solved it by deleting the app and reinstalling it. And I was allowed to log back into Studio. So for those of us, there was a question that came through on the support side too from a client that worked. So just be aware.
Good stuff. Well, we got a little less than 10 minutes left. If you got any other questions, fire away. We'll keep on rolling otherwise. So
Yes.
Before we kicked off and went live this morning at 8:30, we have our little session where we just banter and talk about whatever we're going on, whether it be coffee or work, and one of those things. And I'm going to pitch this question to Michael. In the past week, what sort of questions did you get about Bluebeam that are worth sharing? About review? Get anything cool that you were working on? Like, hey, that's kind of neat. I'd like to share that.
Trying to think. No, the past week I was doing project work, so
okay,
nothing cool yet. But I'll ask you the question because I know you had something cool.
I did have something cool, and I can't wait. It's so cool that we're going to have to do our own session about it.
Okay.
But what it is a question that came up, and I know I've answered this incorrectly before. So someone had asked me, how do I draw a line that's 100 feet long? And I didn't really know, because when I first started using Review, you just draw a line and then you go to the properties of that line, and then you can go down to the length and you can see stuff to see what it is, and then sort of do it this way because it's not accurate. However, there is a whole set of tools here with the orange marking on them for sketch to scale that does let you to draw things at a length. So it's super cool. You have that ability to draw to scale accordingly. So that was something I wish I had known earlier. And this is something that we'll probably talk about in more detail, because as more firms are starting to work with Review because they don't have access to CAD, or they just want to do something faster than CAD, because you're already in here, I'm just going to take care of this real quick, that type of thing. So what I had spent more time with last week was tool sets, come into scale, depending on what your file is set to, as well as polylines and drawing things customized. So this would also work with profiles and everything we're talking about today.
So we got a question from David, Jason. Any good tricks for converting lines, segments to arcs, say to get an area that has a curve in it where the line work is sloppy and dynamic fill leaks out? Line work is sloppy. You can always add boundaries. That works too, by the way. When you're worried about something spilling out when you do the pour. But a markup are we talking about, I find them challenging. Okay. Yeah, see, it spills over.
Why does this one spill over though?
Because you're probably not on fine. So go to your settings.
Oh.
Yeah, it is.
This is because I've done dynamic fill in this file a bunch of times, and then for some reason I changed
line work.
things.
Turn on your line work.
Always in the same spot is where I like to go.
But do you use your line works off?
On here?
Bottom right, bottom right, bottom right. Navigation where your scale is. Maybe that's why. Here, yeah.
Oh. You
Try
think
that.
line weight has to do with this?
I think so.
Let's find out. Whoa, what's that? Not a boundary.
Nope.
No. Still spilling out. Interesting. So yeah, this one we'll have to revisit because yeah, I've been in this file a bunch of times. For some reason, dynamic fill just isn't working the same way.
But if we're drawing a line, so David, is yours for a measurement like a poly length?
Yeah, I must have changed its setting.
So maybe we spill it in areas and don't hold it to get a whole area. So does that make sense? Like spill it in a corner and then spill in the next corner and then spill it in the next corner. Does it bleed out?
Yeah.
So
yeah. Weird. Edge sensitivity is high. Yeah, we'll have to go through and maybe what I should do is whenever Revu is acting kind of funny, you can go to your administrator. Oh, that probably made things go black, didn't it?
Nope, you're good.
You can go in here and reset your settings. So be careful with this, but that's what I'm going to do when we're done today, because I can always load things back in, but maybe that will fix my issue.
Yeah, so his question was pertaining to, since the dynamic fill doesn't work that great, he wants to use an area or a poly length. How can he make arcs quickly using the measurement feature though? So if we use a poly length measurement.
Poly length, oh, how do I get over here? Poly length measurement.
Now, if we want to make an arc with it though.
Can you, this isn't something I ever do.
You can right click and select convert to arc, but it doesn't always go the right way.
But not like a polyline in AutoCAD where you can hit A, to change to an arc. Is there, whoa, why did that show up? Is there a toggle? Maybe it's a shift key? No, control key? It would be cool if you could make an arc that way. Yes, you can right click and convert to arc, but can you do it while you're drawing?
You can also do a point. And he's saying that they don't go the right way sometimes. But you could rotate it, yeah.
These little
like
splines.
A spline.
Ooh, all right. So with that, we got a couple minutes left. I'm going to go to Michael to have you share because I'm going to ask you a question that's coming in from William.
Okay.
Putting you on the spot. All right, you ready for this one? So I'll stop my share. You do yours. And I'll queue up the question as you're getting ready. So William is using Bluebeam Revu Extreme version 20.2. So this is the most recent one that we're on. He has a question on layers. He's created the layers that we use and alphabetize them with the parent and child in the sets. I may be doing this wrong, but every time he pastes those layers into a drawing, so everybody's using the same layers, the order gets messed up and there's no more alphabetical order or parent-child. Is there an easier way to get my layers? Is there an easy way to get my layers to save copy in drawing so I don't have to reset the order every time I paste them in? See that option right there? Sort layers alphabetically. Does that, if you toggle that, is that what's causing your issue, perhaps?
So when I'm guessing the profile, whoever's he's in, doesn't have the sort layers alphabetically, but they can come in and do that as well, right? So if he sends the layers, well, he sends a PDF that has the layers in them, I guess would be my thing. Not sends the layers. They could then come over here and sort layers alphabetically, right? But also, right, you can do that by the up and down arrows here.
Right. And it's also losing the parent-child relationship on those layers too. Now, the parent-child is not something I do with Bluebeam layers. That's what my brain immediately goes to Civil 3D styles for parent-child stuff. So I don't know if there's a way to control that as well. Do you ever use parent layers in Revu?
I haven't used them yet, but I'd be willing to take a look at them. So if that's something we want to take offline and he wants to send over the PDF and a snippet of what his looks like, right? And then what I see, we can do some compare. So definitely we could take it offline.
Parent-child is more of an issue than their alphabetical order.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then what I would recommend, and I'll just type this answer in here. I'm sending you the email address for our support team. So feel free to send a snippet, send your file, send some screenshots of the behavior that you're expecting to our support team and have them check it out, and maybe we can get an answer over for you. All right, well, with that is our final question of the day. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Again, if you have any suggestions for future topics, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about here on the Morning Coffee Review. And with that, we'll wrap up today. We will see you next week, Tuesday, 8:30 a.m. Central. We look forward to seeing you then.
Yeah, and be sure to fill out that review at the end because we do look at those for what you want in the future. So again, fill it out at the end. If you're looking for something in particular, we're always here to help. Message us, email us. Again, we look forward to seeing you all next week. And thanks for coming out.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.